In the climactic moments of the last episode, Jun Won's father implored him to reconsider Yuna as a potential wife, highlighting her lingering feelings and describing her decision to end their engagement as a youthful error. Jun Won, visibly unsettled by the conversation, silently placed his spoon down and announced his intention to leave. As he stood to go, his father's words cut sharply through the air with a biting sarcasm, questioning if Jun Won would regret not visiting more once he was gone. As Jun Won walked the streets, lost in thought over his father's pressing words, fate orchestrated an unexpected encounter. Just outside a restaurant, he stumbled upon Dohee. Surprised, she asked, "What are you doing here?" Jun Won, equally taken aback, replied that he was there to meet someone and inquired about her presence. Dohee, maintaining a firm boundary, responded that she too was meeting someone, adding with a touch of defiance that she wasn't obligated to discuss her personal affairs with her boss. With those words, she turned on her heel and walked away. Of all places, she lamented, it had to be here where their paths crossed. On a delightful autumn day, warm sunlight poured through the window, promising Dohee a rare weekend of leisure. After a hectic week, she had hoped to indulge in some well-deserved rest. However, her plans were unexpectedly interrupted by a call from her friend Nuri, who had a rather unusual request. Nuri asked Dohee to attend a blind date on her behalf. Dohee, weary of such setups, immediately rejected the idea, reminding Nuri that she had never agreed to such a request before. Nuri quickly retorted that in her view, Dohee had consistently declined these offers, which left Dohee momentarily doubting her own recollections. Just as Dohee was about to reiterate her refusal, Nuri played her trump card. She offered Dohee a limited edition Jameis watch if she agreed to go on the blind date. Nuri knew well about Dohee's passion for collecting world-renowned timepieces and mentioned that she had gone to great lengths to acquire this particular watch, knowing it wasn't available in Korea. Nuri's words resonated with Dohee, highlighting that some things, friendship, love, and indeed, limited edition watches, were simply too precious to be bought with money alone. Tempted by the allure of the exclusive watch and perhaps a bit moved by Nuri's effort, Dohee reluctantly agreed to take on the blind date in her stead. Dohee's willingness to attend the blind date was driven solely by the promise of acquiring the rare Jameis watch, but her patience was tested early when she noticed Jun Won seated at a nearby table, apparently not in any hurry to leave. As she checked her phone, a teasing message from Jun Won popped up, mocking her role as Nuri's proxy on blind dates. The jab did little to improve her mood, instead fueling her irritation. The date itself shifted gears when the conversation veered into philosophical territory. When asked about her favorite philosopher, Dohee named Aristotle, eliciting approval from her date who lauded the philosopher's contributions to ancient Greek thought. However, Dohee was quick to dispel the positive note, criticizing Aristotle's outdated views on women as either mutated or incomplete males, a perspective she found deeply offensive and misaligned with her personal values. Sensing her date's readiness to delve further into a philosophical discussion, Dohee decided she had enough. With a quick wit and a reference to Benjamin Franklin, she quipped, "Time is money." Graciously yet firmly, she thanked the man for his philosophical insights, which she wryly termed an unintentional lecture, and took her leave. In the lobby, a slightly flustered Dohee confronted Jun Won, asking pointedly why he seemed to be following her. Jun Won casually dismissed the idea, explaining that he was merely on his way to the parking lot as well. He couldn't help but notice, however, that Dohee's lunch date seemed less than satisfying, and he ventured to ask if she had actually eaten anything, considering the philosophical nature of her meeting. Turning to face Jun Won, Dohee clarified that her date was a philosophy professor, not a philosopher per se, and insisted she had eaten her fill. Yet, just as she finished her statement, her stomach betrayed her with a telltale growl. Caught off guard, she quickly covered, joking that it seemed she had digested her meal faster than expected. Jun Won, wearing a knowing grin, seized the moment to extend an invitation, asking Dohee what she would like to eat. At a cozy gopchang restaurant, Jun Won and Dohee settled into their seats, the sizzle of the grill mixing with the lively chatter around them. Jun Won raised an eyebrow as Dohee ordered soju along with their meal. Dohee, with a proud smile, declared that gopchang and soju were a heavenly pairing and nonchalantly added that she would drink alone if he wasn't up for joining her. As they relaxed into the evening, Dohee couldn't help but probe Jun Won about his current stance on blind dates. He confirmed that he had indeed stopped, previously mentioning that it was partly because of her influence. Skeptical, Dohee pressed him not to use her as an excuse. Jun Won conceded that there were additional reasons, mainly the challenge of finding someone who aligned with his views and values on marriage. Recalling a past conversation, Dohee quizzed him if he was still looking for someone who wanted nothing from him. Jun Won admitted that he was weary of people demanding constant love and affection, which seemed an unrealistic expectation to him. Dohee, curious, asked if he couldn't simply pretend to declare love even if it wasn't fully sincere. Jun Won responded thoughtfully, suggesting that although it was possible, he believed people should be accountable for their words. He confessed that he didn't want to feel responsible for anyone but himself. Dohee understood the gravity of such responsibility, it indeed required courage. However, she sensed something else in Jun Won's words this evening, a deliberate distancing, as if he were building a protective barrier around himself. This realization made her ponder the complexities hidden beneath his straightforward demeanor. As they continued their meal, Dohee, masking her deeper feelings with indifference, couldn't help but recall that Jun Won had once expressed a need to get married. Jun Won confirmed that his situation hadn't changed, he still needed to marry soon, but his reasons carried a weighty urgency. Curious, Dohee pressed him about what he meant by not having much time left. Jun Won's face clouded over as he disclosed his father's terminal illness, late-stage lung cancer. Understanding dawned on Dohee, and she gently asked if Jun Won wanted his father to see him settled and starting a family before he passed away. Jun Won's response, however, was unexpectedly pragmatic. His father had agreed to amend his will to favor Jun Won if he married, hinting at an asset of particular importance he wished to secure. Dohee felt a pang of disappointment at his stark honesty. She pondered aloud how someone who seemed so ruthless, even towards his own parents, could have shown such unexpected support at work. She reflected on their shared experience of the time loop, recalling how Jun Won had supported her despite his disdain for the repetitive days. Jun Won admitted that he wasn't entirely sure why he had helped her. To his own surprise, he had felt a sense of happiness in doing so. Dohee shared that knowing someone else was aware of the time loop and could share in the seemingly infinite cycle also brought her a strange comfort. Jun Won's presence, she confessed, had become a solace to her amidst the chaos of their shared experience. She mused on the oddity of it all, why, of all people, it was Jun Won who shared this profound connection with her. The realization of their unique bond brought a mix of comfort and complexity to her feelings. As Dohee and Jun Won were absorbed in their conversation, a familiar voice suddenly called out Dohee's name. She turned to see Eun approaching. Surprised, she asked him why he was here since he had mentioned having training that day. Eun explained that he had cancelled his training to rest before a match and was currently deciding what to eat while taking a walk. Noticing Jun Won, Dohee took the opportunity to introduce him. "This is Mr. Seo Jun Won, the chief manager at our company," she said. Eun nodded, making a light comment about their apparent friendship, hinting at their closeness by spending time together over the weekend. Jun Won and Eun shook hands, and Jun Won remarked that Eun's voice sounded familiar, recalling he was the friend who was supposed to pick up Dohee when she was intoxicated some time ago. Eun's demeanor shifted as he tightened his grip on Jun Won's hand upon hearing this. He forced a smile and mentioned that it would have been helpful if Jun Won had informed him of their location back then. Jun Won calmly explained that Eun's name was saved simply as R.A. Eun on Dohee's phone, which didn't give him enough information to safely disclose her location, adding that he thought it was too risky. Eun, a bit defensive, questioned if Jun Won had hung up because he was a man. Dohee quickly intervened, trying to defuse the growing tension. The situation escalated when Jun Won directly asked Eun if he had feelings for Dohee, prompted by the unusually strong handshake. Taken aback and visibly blushing, Eun stumbled over his words, questioning what Jun Won meant by that. Jun Won released his hand, lightly commenting on the strength of the grip. Eun quickly excused his firm handshake as unintentional, attributing it to his strength as an athlete. Jun Won calmly acknowledges that Eun indeed looked familiar, recognizing him as Kang Eun, the professional golfer. He admits to occasionally watching golf matches and enjoying Eun's play. However, Eun doesn't let go of the topic and asks Jun Won where he took Dohee that day, as she was heavily intoxicated but never returned home that night. Jun Won maintains his composure as he reveals that he took Dohee to a hotel. Eun's irritation and anger flare up as he questions Jun Won's actions, expressing disbelief at how he could do that to a colleague who was in such a vulnerable state. Dohee attempts to diffuse the tension by reassuring Eun that nothing inappropriate happened and explaining that Jun Won had taken her to the hotel due to the sudden rain. Despite Dohee's efforts, Eun persists and directly asks Jun Won if he has feelings for her. Dohee intervenes once more, urging Eun to stop being disrespectful towards Jun Won. There's a moment of silence before Jun Won responds with a firm denial, stating that he doesn't have any feelings for Dohee. The atmosphere grows tense as the conversation hangs in the air, with underlying tension palpable between the three of them. The night Dohee and Jun Won spent together had been a moment of mutual attraction, but Dohee knew she didn't want anything more from it. In an attempt to maintain professional boundaries and personal clarity, she had asked Jun Won to act as if that night had never happened, a proposal he initially refused. However, Jun Won's later assertion that he had no feelings for Dohee left her confused and unexpectedly hurt, questioning why his indifference pained her so much. The next morning, rushing to avoid being late for work, Dohee chose to take the train. During her commute, she noticed a boy with an injured leg and kindly offered him her seat. Grateful, the boy thanked her by giving her an energy drink, adding a small but positive start to her week despite her inner turmoil. Her morning continued to be eventful when she encountered Jun Won in the lift at work. As the doors closed and the lift began its ascent, Jun Won broke the silence. He confessed that despite what he had told her friend last weekend about not having feelings for her, he had spent some time thinking and realized that he actually did have feelings for Dohee. His admission caught Dohee completely off guard, rendering her speechless and statue-like as she processed his words. Junwon's confession of burning love pushed her against a wall, his words filled with intense passion, asking if he might get lost in her eyes and even boldly requesting a kiss. But before anything could unfold, Dohee woke up, startled to find herself in her own bed, the dream dissolving into the morning air. Frustrated and slightly embarrassed by the romantic intensity of her dream, she hurriedly prepared for work. Noticing the time, Dohee opted for the train to avoid being late. As she settled into the commute, an uncanny sense of déjà vu washed over her when she encountered an injured boy on the train, just like in her dream. She offered him her seat, and in return, he handed her an energy drink, a gesture that mirrored her nocturnal vision. The eerie replication of her dream's events led Dohee to suspect that she might be experiencing another time loop, possibly even precognitive dreams. Her thoughts were a jumble as she stepped into the lift at work, only to find Jun Won there, just as she had dreamt. The anticipation hung heavy as he began to speak, echoing the dream's confession. He admitted that despite previously claiming indifference, he had realized that he did have feelings for her. Dohee's heart raced, half expecting the dream to continue into a kiss. However, reality veered sharply from her dreamy expectations. Jun Won simply finished his confession and, with a respectful nod, complimented her as a remarkable colleague and expressed his appreciation for her. As the lift doors opened, he walked away, leaving Dohee feeling a mixture of relief and disappointment. Her heart sank as the romantic climax of her dream fizzled out, replaced by the mundane continuity of their professional relationship. During an evening dinner, the conversation between Dohee and Nuri took a playful yet probing turn. Nuri, ever the instigator, mentioned that she heard about Dohee going out to eat with Jun Won over the weekend. Dohee clarified, a bit impatiently, that she was on a blind date impersonating Nuri at that time and just happened to run into Jun Won, which led to them grabbing a meal together. Nuri, with a mischievous gleam in her eye, didn't miss a beat to stir the pot further by asking if there was something going on between Dohee and Jun Won. Dohee dismissed the suggestion as nonsense, asserting there was nothing between them. Undeterred, Nuri pressed on, cheekily inquiring whether Dohee had ended up sleeping with Jun Won that day. Dohee's immediate, defensive response only fueled Nuri's curiosity, causing her to point out that a simple no would have sufficed without the overreaction, which now made Dohee seem even more suspicious. Nuri then shifted the conversation to her own preferences in men, candidly expressing her desire for a partner who was not only physically attractive but also had a solid background, someone like Mr. Seo, aka Jun Won. Dohee was taken aback by the mention of Jun Won's name, her reaction not going unnoticed by Nuri, who teased her further about it. Feeling cornered and unable to dispel the intrusive thoughts about Jun Won, which Nuri's teasing exacerbated, Dohee finally pleaded with Nuri to tone down the conversation about men and relationships. As the dinner conversation flowed, Ian suddenly appeared at the restaurant, interrupting the lively banter. Nuri, surprised to see him since she thought he couldn't make it, asked why he showed up. Ian explained that he hadn't been feeling well and decided to take a break, joining them to lighten his spirits. Nuri, undeterred, quickly turned her attention back to Dohee, eager to delve into the details of her encounter with Jun Won. She prodded Dohee for the juicy details about what happened after their meal. Before Dohee could respond, Ian interjected, clarifying that nothing significant occurred, they had simply run into Jun Won during the meal and then went their separate ways. Nuri playfully booed Ian for being a spoilsport and dousing the flames of her intrigue. Continuing her lively commentary, Nuri mused that if Jun Won weren't Dohee's colleague, she would have attempted to seduce him. However, she quickly added that Jun Won probably wouldn't be swayed by her efforts. Describing him as lacking human emotions, stiff, and difficult to read, Nuri painted Jun Won as the quintessential bad boy who likely left a trail of heartbroken women behind him. Reflecting on Nuri's characterization, Dohee agreed that Jun Won was indeed a calm and enigmatic figure, often hard to read. She wondered aloud about his upbringing and the kind of world that shaped such a reserved and seemingly impenetrable persona. The thought of someone so guarded made her question whether there was room for anyone in his heart, pondering if it was even possible for a woman to truly enter his life. As Dohee excused herself to the bathroom, Nuri took the opportunity to confront Ian about his feelings for Dohee. She bluntly observed that his behavior lately had made it obvious he had feelings for her, challenging him not to hide it anymore. Ian was taken aback by the accusation, defensively asking Nuri if she was crazy to think he was interested in Dohee in that way. Unfazed, Nuri insisted that he was fooling himself and warned that if he continued to send mixed signals, he risked losing Dohee to someone else. She added that although it seemed Dohee was in denial about her own developing feelings for Jun Won, Ian still held a significant place in her life as a friend, at least for the moment. Nuri promised to help him out, advising Ian to listen carefully to her forthcoming guidance. When Dohee returned from the bathroom, she sensed the secretive tone between her friends and inquired about their conversation. Nuri casually dismissed it, saying they were just discussing men. However, Ian, spurred by Nuri's earlier words and perhaps feeling a surge of courage, decided to make a bold declaration. With a dramatic slam on the table, he caught everyone's attention and confessed to Dohee that, to be honest, he really didn't see her just as a friend. Nuri's strategy for Ian was to tap into the bad boy allure that she believed drew women like Dohee to men like Jun Won. Convinced that indifference and a nonchalant attitude would make Ian more appealing, she advised him to stop being nice to Dohee. However, when Ian took this advice to the extreme by shouting at Dohee that he hated her more than anyone else in the world, the plan backfired dramatically. Shocked and angered by his harsh words, Dohee slapped Ian and demanded to know what he expected her to do with such a declaration. Nuri, witnessing the scene, was frustrated by Ian's crude execution of her advice, lamenting that his understanding seemed limited to sports only. Meanwhile, a woman was trapped in a fire, desperately calling out to a child for help as she struggled to breathe. The intensity of the dream jolted Jun Won awake. He reached for a bottle of tablets, seeking relief from the lingering images in his rising anxiety, only to find it empty. Sitting back on his bed with a pale face, Jun Won was overwhelmed by a mix of disappointment and helplessness, the remnants of the dream echoing in his mind, blurring the lines between his subconscious fears and reality. The following day in the strategy meeting, Dohee unveiled a visionary idea aimed at bolstering their product's presence in the market, thus enhancing customer familiarity with their brand. The director, visibly impressed, lavished praise on Dohee, applauding her innovative approach and consistent excellence. As the meeting progressed, Mr. Ha took the stage with his own compelling proposition. He articulated a strategic initiative to elevate brand recognition by associating with individuals who epitomize the brand's pristine and sophisticated image. To this end, he recommended a collaboration with the rising culinary star, Chef Cha Yuna. By leveraging Chef Yuna's burgeoning fame, they could significantly boost their brand's profile among consumers. Furthermore, Mr. Ha suggested that, should this initial partnership prove fruitful, expanding the concept to include a series of meal kits featuring the signature menus of various renowned chefs could be a lucrative follow-up strategy. The director, intrigued by Mr. Ha's proposal, acknowledged its potential but expressed reservations about its practicality, particularly questioning the likelihood of everyday consumers choosing to prepare something as gourmet as eggplant gratin at home. Seeking further insight, he turned to Jun Won, whose opinion was highly valued in these discussions. However, before Jun Won could contribute his thoughts, Mr. Ha interjected with a pressing issue that could impact the integrity of their promotional strategies. He alerted the director to a troubling headline on the main page of a prominent news site: author Kwok, whom Dohee had referenced in her presentation, had been implicated in a drug scandal. After the meeting, Dohee was catching up with Nuri when the topic of their high school reunion came up. Nuri, ever curious, inquired if Dohee had received the usual invitation. Dohee responded with a mixture of disdain and resignation, noting that the organizing committee never failed to remind her annually. She quickly dismissed the idea of attending, questioning the point of subjecting herself to an event filled with people who, in her view, were likely more interested in humiliating her than celebrating old times. However, the conversation took a surprising turn when Nuri mentioned that Cha Yuna would be attending this year. Yuna was not just any former classmate, she was a standout figure from their elite private high school, a place teeming with gifted students from ostensibly perfect backgrounds. Yuna, the most brilliant among them, had secured an early acceptance to a prestigious university, largely thanks to her father's influential position as the chairman of the foundation that also sponsored Dohee's scholarship. This connection had forged a bond between Dohee and Yuna that was almost sisterly, until it was scorched by scandal. The harmony of their relationship unraveled and malicious rumors began to circulate, suggesting Dohee was merely feigning affluence to fit in with Yuna and Nuri. When Dohee bravely confronted Yuna to clear the air, Yuna's response was cold and dismissive. She denied starting the rumors but implied they were indeed reflective of the truth, all the while maintaining an infuriatingly innocent demeanor. Dohee was left seething with disgust and frustration, painfully aware of the delicate threads that tied her to Yuna through the scholarship, threads that meant she couldn't retaliate without risking her own future. Now, as Mr. Ha proposed a professional collaboration with Yuna, Dohee felt an old wound reopen, knowing she might have to face her past head-on.